Happy Wednesday, and welcome back to the Lorden Arts channel. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for joining me here today as we talk about a pretty big update in the Kierra Coles case. This is a case that has had some very interesting challenges from a direction that you probably wouldn't expect. We'll go into just a little bit of the backstory to make sure that everyone's kind of up to speed, because we're now getting some information that maybe we can actually lean on from law enforcement. And that kind of wasn't the case a few years ago. Let's go ahead and take a look at this together. We first covered Kierra Coles' case on Searchlight about 3 years ago at this point. And then we had a little bit of a significant update, but let's just take a look at the basics. U.S. Postal Inspection Service, they actually put out a reward. She is a post office employee. They are offering a $25,000 reward at the time that she went missing, which was Tuesday, October 2nd, 2018. She was 26 years old. She was also 3 months pregnant. A black female with brown hair. She has a tattoo of a heart on her right hand and Lucky Libra tattooed on her back. Weighs 125 pounds, stands at 5 feet 4 inches tall, medium brown complexion with black hair. What's the big challenge, or what happened with this case? Basically, it's this footage. There was some video that was released at the time, officially, came through law enforcement, of what we thought was Kierra walking across the street. And it was interesting because, people like me were looking at this footage trying to understand, where's she going? She seems to be passing her car. She's walking away from her home. Is someone else picking her up? You put that information out into the public, and all of a sudden people are trying to help, but they're thinking about things in a very particular way. We then hit this update that we had to do, and this was about 2 years after the first episode, a Searchlight update, Kierra Coles footage fraud, case back to square one. What happened with that? Kierra Coles' disappearance, woman in video played nationwide, wasn't her mother says. This is reported at NBCChicago.com. After 2 years of no answers, Phillips told NBC5 Investigates she was ready to reveal what Chicago detectives told her not to disclose at the time of her daughter's disappearance. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to mess up the case, said Phillips. It's a mother thing. You just know your child. That's not her walk. She was a little bit smaller and a little bit shorter. The next day, Phillips said she went down to the Chicago police station to talk with detectives about her concerns that it wasn't her daughter on the video after all. Phillips said that Chicago detectives told her that wasn't her daughter on the video. So she thought she was giving them some helpful information. They basically said, no, we know it's not her. Quote, he says, don't tell anybody that's not your daughter, said Phillips, noting that the video was of another woman who lived down the street and worked at the post office. That's part of what was so gripping about it, because you could see the clothing in the video, and it's like, well, yeah, that definitely could be a post office employee. Phillips admitted she remained quiet for years, not saying a word about the video, saying, now I have nothing to lose. I mean, it's been 2 years, and you investigators have come up with nothing. And there, I think we get a sense that, her and law enforcement maybe not on the same page at that point. 2 more videos emerged the night Kierra disappeared. Phillips told NBC5 Investigates that another Chatham neighbor showed her a video of Kierra and her boyfriend, Josh Simmons, a fellow postal employee, leaving her apartment in separate cars the Tuesday night Kierra disappeared. The video was turned over to police. So we know that there is a legit video. As far as I know, that one was never released publicly. Phillips also disclosed that after leaving Kierra's apartment, Chicago police detectives told her that the couple went to an ATM nearby, where video captured Kierra taking out $400 from her banking account and handing it over to her boyfriend. Another video that at that time had not actually been released. We're just hearing that it actually exists. There was an update in September of 2021. Basically, this was coming up on Kierra's birthday at this time. Missing Chicago postal worker Kierra Coles' parents still searching. On October 2nd, 2021, she'll be missing for 3 years. On September 24th, Coles' family held a press conference to ask once again for anyone with information about their daughter to please come forward. When you go from seeing your child every day to not seeing her for 3 years, no one out here can imagine. Certainly understand that. But then we get to this month, and all of a sudden, some new information. June 14th, 2022, as reported here at CBS News, new video. Chicago police have released new video of missing postal worker Kierra Coles, who was last seen nearly 4 years ago. The footage shows Coles, who was 3 months pregnant at the time, withdrawing cash. So this is that second video that we just heard about in the last article, or the previous article. She was withdrawing cash from an ATM inside a Walgreens store in Chatham. It's the last known images ever recorded of Coles before she vanished in October of 2018. Just minutes earlier, video shows Coles driving off from her apartment with a man detectives call a person of interest. From this point forward, his name doesn't get mentioned anymore, but I'm pretty sure we're talking about Josh Simmons. But what is this video? Well, it's an 8-minute video that's actually hosted by the police, the Chicago Police Department. We could see at the time of recording this video, there's been less than 1,500 views on it. It's about 8.5 minutes long, features Kierra's mother asking for help and kind of showing that there is now some cooperation, because it also has law enforcement kind of detail a new version of the timeline. So I think it's really important that we get that out. Let's go ahead and watch this together.
After canvassing for video and analyzing the hours of footage obtained, detectives were able to piece together a timeline of the last few hours before Kierra disappeared on October 2nd. During the course of that night, Kierra entered her residence in the 8100 block of South Vernon. A man who detectives identified as a person of interest also arrived and entered the residence. Kierra and the man later got into her car and drove off, with Kierra in the driver's seat. Kierra was seen making the ATM withdrawal on surveillance video just minutes later. Less than an hour later, the vehicle is seen arriving and parking in another area of the city. The person of interest exits the passenger side of the vehicle, but nobody exits the driver's side. The next day, the person of interest is seen parking Kierra's vehicle near her residence before entering the building and exiting with unknown items. He then drives away in his personal vehicle that was parked on the block overnight. When officers questioned the person of interest after Kierra was reported missing, he gave varying accounts of the last time he saw her. Detectives cast a wide net for evidence that would lead to Kierra's whereabouts. Many of Kierra's family and friends were interviewed. Social media accounts were reviewed. A forensics test for blood evidence was conducted. Her personal computer, phone records, and financial records were all analyzed.
The worst thing a parent can go through is not knowing whether their child is safe, warm, fed, being treated right. It's just heartbreaking.
So there are two big things that kind of stand out in this for me. Number one is part of the problem that happened with the initial video coming out and not being accurate was we put out a description of the clothing that she was last seen in that probably wasn't true. We now know from this footage that the outfit that she's wearing when she truly is last seen is considerably different. We've got like tight pants, we've got some type of dark zip up or sweater. We've got a hat. Like if we could get a better description on this clothing, because if we are assuming the worst, and kind of it sounds like the investigator is certainly leaning that way, that something happened to her on this night, this should be the description that we're looking for, not Kierra dressed up in postal worker clothes or something like that. So getting that information out, I think, is really important. The other thing is this collage of photos that they show. One of the ones that really grabbed me is it looks like they processed the car, and these two photos up here, I don't know if it's necessarily blood, but it's interesting that they included these photos and are kind of showing them in this way. Her family just wants her back. They're pleading with anyone that has any information. I would love to see her with her child. Karen Phillips, Kierra's mother, said she is such a mothering person. While initial surveillance video released by CPD was not Coles, investigators and Coles' family hope everyone will stop to check out these new images and try to close this cold case. If you know something, say something. This has been going on too long. I just hope that anybody out there who knows something have a heart and finally call it in, said her mother. Of course, we have the contact information that you need in the description box down below. And we're actually recording this during the secret studio. I just want to check in with the chat and see what you guys have in terms of thoughts, responses, feelings on this case. Lane is surprised that the Walgreens didn't have better video. In my store, they're all really good color views. Yeah, and that's part of what's tough about the footage. I mean, now we have some better information, but we have no idea about the color. Like, those pants look pretty identifiable. If we knew what color they were, that could certainly help. I don't know if her family has pictures of her wearing those clothes or something that could be helpful in that way. KW asks about what did the person of interest remove from her property. That and the fact that the timeline has him come back and it doesn't seem like she's with him, I think is really interesting. And it does seem like they've done a pretty good job tracking the movements of that vehicle, finding it at several different locations. It feels like there's a gap in that. And that's kind of what they're looking for help with from the public. Autumn Falls asks, do we know if they showed the incorrect video on purpose or was it initially an accident? That's a really good question. I haven't found any details on that. I think the incorrect video had an I don't know if it was intended or not, but it did have a good side effect. In terms of coverage on cases like this, if you have video of the missing person or kind of a last seen video, that really helps mainstream media kind of grab onto that case and then run with it. And this case, they certainly did. So I think it might have been helpful in that aspect at the time, but of course, there's the question of how helpful is it if you're putting out information that isn't exactly accurate and you're asking for the public's help. They're thinking she's going off walking in one direction, wearing completely different clothes, and none of that is actually true. I do think it's a point worth considering. Crystal Donovan saying, I can't see the purpose in the wrong video. It's really, I don't know. I just don't know if they did it on purpose or not. It could be that, missing persons cases can run really fast. It could be they found that video, they started routing it out to media, and then obviously they do figure out who the person is, because when the mother goes in to talk to them, they say, yeah, we know it's someone from down the street, but don't say anything. That decision might have happened because even though they accidentally released it, maybe they saw that, oh, this is getting a lot of media attention. And maybe they were thinking, hey, this is going to put some pressure on our person of interest. He's going to think that all these reporters are out there scouting around and everyone's got eyes on him. So maybe they thought there was it wouldn't be the first time that I've heard of law enforcement potentially putting information in the public realm that might not necessarily be 100% on the up and up. Sometimes it's an investigative tool. So maybe there is some aspect to that. Obviously, a lot of questions coming from the audience here. I'm sure you are thinking the same thing there. Let's continue the conversation in the comments down below. If you're not familiar with this case, in the description box, you'll also find links to both of the previous videos that we have done on this. And we really hope that this is the start. Maybe, a year ago, I was saying they're back at square one. Now we've actually got some pieces to play. And I'm hoping that this helps bring answers for Kierra's family. Thank you so much, and please join us again on Friday with a brand new mystery right here on the Lord and Arts channel.